What's up, everybody? Thralls of Metal here. I'm Jammin John.
Necrotic Dank.
And we are bringing you yet another album review.
Imagine that.
What are the odds of Thralls of Metal doing an album review?
Pretty good.
So close to release day or on release day or whatever. And we are bringing you the newest release from Aeons Abyss, Terror Manifest. Aeons Abyss was formed in 2017 in Melbourne, Australia. Just a two-piece band. Steve on guitar and vocals, and then Paul on vocals. Steve programs all of the drums as well.
And this is an independent release. This also comes out on the 5th of November. And, all right, as it was described on Metal Archives, which generally where we go to at least figure out, all right, where do they kind of fit in? This is described as melodic death metal / thrash metal. But honestly, it's kind of all over the place. I would definitely say that this band was centered on an era more so than just one particular sound. It's definitely late 80s, early 90s death and thrash metal, but different approaches to all of those sounds. Like, it isn't just like, Tampa and like Bay Area. Nope. Kind of global, actually.
Yeah, kind of like, did they play metal in Denmark? Yep. Did they play them in California? Yep. Florida, Germany,
Yeah, just pick a country, but it's very specifically, again, late 80s, early 90s, even kind of down to like the production, definitely in terms of the style. Now, this has an interesting theme in terms of the song titles. This is all tarot themed. So we have the Fool, the Tower, the Devil, Death, the Hanged Man, so all those fun things. I didn't study up on tarot, so I'm not sure if any of those are good or bad cards, but I'd be kind of cool to see if I got a death or a devil card, but I'm pretty sure that means something bad for them.
Well, for the normal person, though, I think if I pulled death or the devil, I'd be like, all right.
Fucking sweet.
Cool.
We're pretty fucking broken here.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting theme, and that might kind of explain why these songs can be so vastly different. Opening track, The Fool, starts off with like a really cool turnover and then doomy harmonies, and then we're going into more, I guess, like technical death thrash. There's a lot of, well, honestly, one specific death album that I kind of picked up on, and it's Symbolic.
Through and through.
Through and through, that might be kind of a unifying theme. Drum work, granted, it's programmed, is very much along the lines of the drum work that is on Symbolic. Lots of interesting off-time stuff.
Yeah, lots of Gene Hoglan.
Yes.
Yep. Which
is there a setting on the
thing.
Machine that says Gene Hoglan?
Yeah.
Yep. There we go.
Yep.
Because it really sounds a lot like that, and of course, coupled with the riff work definitely screams a lot of that era of death, coupled with, you know, some thrashy moments towards the end of the song. It kind of breaks into like a mid-tempo sort of like, you know, double time stomp. And already I'm getting kind of the sense that this is going to be kind of a smorgasbord of a listen. And it really was. This, again, holds on to an era, not so much a style. You get down to songs like The High Priestess and The Hanged Man, and I think we went to Gothenburg, because there's a lot of early melodic death metal, like Lunar Strain era In Flames, early Dark Tranquility, early Catatonia, like before they started really doing a lot of clean vocals. Very interesting just in terms of all the aspects, and well, we're going to get into more aspects because that isn't the only wild journey we took.
Yep. Oh, and you said The Hanged Man. I thought The Hanged Man, too, had kind of like, is funky death doom a genre? Because it reminded me like if Primus was like a blackened death doom band.
There's some fun drum work in there.
But the drum work is very Sean Reinert.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was a tribute to Sean Reinert. But in terms of like an additional hodgepodge of style, the Hierophant, really like big kind of gross Middle Eastern, very Nile sounding.
Or Melakesh, because, well, when you couple it with the vocals, it's kind of, again, those like almost kind of proto death metal vocals, like they're kind of the harsher thrash metal vocals, but they're getting a little bit deeper. And then you have blackened shrieks. I mean, they sound like black metal shrieks. So I kind of erased Nile on my description and went with Melakesh. And honestly, it works either way because they both like that same sound. And the tower also has some interesting Middle Eastern themes. Again, we are spanning the globe, and our last stop will be Australia.
The song The Devil, first of all, I like the opener groove. There's a lot of groove in this song, kind of a bouncy, just kind of syncopated jam. Gets a little like obituary-ish at times, I thought.
I mean, the groove is present.
But like this song seemed to be the more like straightforward banger.
Yes.
And that's kind of really like the only time it gets as straightforward as it does.
It's still like experimental. It still takes you on that journey, but like the opening riff, it's got a solid groove to it. They're not bothering with the off-time stuff.
Yep.
Really cool, like, you know, early death harmonies. There's a lot of death, and they pretty much just check off every era.
Yep.
But again, solid band to emulate. And honestly, I just kind of liked how this song flowed. Like, it still got experimental again, but it kind of just stayed on track, and there was a centralized theme to it.
Right, it kind of didn't deviate off of the beaten path too much. Like, it took a couple twists and turns, but it was really just kind of a straightforward presentation.
And it presents some really, really solid hooks on it, too. One of my favorites was The Hermit. The Hermit opens up very aggressively, and this one kind of starts to embody a little bit more like the technical thrash side. So I got like a little bit of like Watchtower or Anacrusis in there.
I got a little bit of Power Trip in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's still raw and gritty too, but there's a lot of cool technical play on there. And it has some flat out death metal moments, like breaking out into full bore blast beats, which blast beats really aren't like a big thing on here, but this one breaks out into some really cool tremolos. It still keeps a good melody to it, but it feels heavier. It feels more aggressive.
Too short of a song, though. It was only 2 minutes and 40 seconds or something like that, and I feel like there could have been more.
It ends kind of
abruptly. Off a
abruptly.
little soon.
Yeah, I mean, it ends on, like, again, a very later death breakdown. Like,
Right.
You know, again, set the program to Gene Hoglan and watch it go. But honestly, that's kind of a thing that I liked in here. Like, this, again, that specific era, there's a lot of cool stuff that kind of navigates between death and thrash metal. Like, those bands that kind of were in both camps. Possessed, Pestilence, you know, definitely some Slayer worship in some of the riffs, too. And honestly, when it comes down to some of the more technical elements, bands like Atheist, there are some serious Atheist vibes in the beginning of the song The Emperor.
You get a couple of interesting interludes, and I think what would a record be these days without at least an interlude here or there?
I mean,
but these interludes are really kind of weird, creepy.
yes.
Creepy. So most of it's just samples with these really creepy, I don't even want to say vocals because they're not. It's spoken word, but it sounds like demons having a conversation back and forth.
I think it's the same conversation I've had with my sleep paralysis demon trying to get to sleep.
The Magician Made My Skin Crawl, and then the song Death. I do like Death, though, a little bit more. It has a little bit more music kind of in it. There's a cool snare drum roll thing.
Yeah, you get like some dissonant harmonies, and then like the Hell Awaits intro chattering, and I'm reasonably sure this was them telling us that Beavis did in fact go to hell. Because the Cornholio, except,
actually,
more demonic. But I mean, as for the atmosphere, it's definitely unsettling and it's odd. And vocals are, again, kind of an interesting thing on here because they're, I don't know, like in terms of like meters, in terms of following like vocal meters, they're strange. They come in on odd points, they kind of leave off at odd points, and the cadences can be odd, especially songs like The Emperor again.
Yeah.
That has some rapid fire vocals over this odd off-time rhythm, and it honestly doesn't fit, but it kind of gives me like a, that sort of old school vibe where bands were searching out a sound and trying to figure out where stuff would fit. But odd and just, I don't know, strange. There's a lot of spoken word spots that kind of get peppered in there too. And that kind of segues into like an issue I had with the album is, man, there is a lot going on here. There is possibly too much. Now, again, like I said, they focus on an era rather than on like a specific sound. This gives the album sort of a non-centered feel. It doesn't feel centered particularly on one sound. In fact, some of this sounds like it could be different bands.
Yeah, like from song to song, it kind of differs so much where you're like, okay, well, no. Okay, well, no. Like,
the transitions happen in a snap, and you could be snapping right into a completely different subgenre. And where everything seems to work well, like the song The Devil, where the songs flow evenly, and you're still getting all that experimentation, is really good. But when you're starting to mix in a lot of these odd off-time rhythms, transitions into, like, again, strip death metal, melodic death metal, thrash metal, which the thrash metal side is present in the riffs, but not in the speed.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. Yeah, because I think the riffs are good. He writes great riffs, but the way they flow into one another just doesn't really jive. Like it doesn't feel like a cohesive thing.
I mean, it kind of feels, again, like, more experimental bands within, like, thrash, like, again, like Watchtower. But Watchtower kind of works there just in terms of, like, an odd approach. And again, Atheist, that's still a challenging listen, but ultimately very rewarding. The whole thing kind of feels like a stream of consciousness. Like, it continuously keeps moving in a path, and parts tend to wander, but they generally can keep it together for the most part. But I don't know, like, this is, I guess you could call it an experimental album. This is my first actual listen. I know John has been in contact.
Yeah, I've been in contact with him. I first reviewed them on What's John Jammin', their debut record, and they reached out again and said, hey, we got this new record coming out, and would you guys review it? And yeah, sure. It sounds like a hodgepodge of a whole bunch of bands that I really love.
Yeah.
That really whoop ass.
I wrote down all great bands here.
Yeah. I didn't write down a single slouch in the Death, Sabbath, Maiden, Priest, Cynic.
Yeah.
Power Trip. It's good, but it sounds like what happens when you have ADHD and you don't take your medication for a couple days and you just kind of and that's kind of what it sounds like at times.
I feel like it's like a great restaurant with a menu that's too fucking big. Like, there's a lot of great stuff in it, but you can only really order one thing, or unless you're like a pig like me, you get an appetizer too and probably dessert. But there's just too much on it. Like, the same place where you can get like a nice fucking ribeye. It's like, oh, you can also get Chinese and sushi, and we do Brazilian cuisine too for whatever reason. Like, it's just kind of too spread out. Check out our
pastry puffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, we have donuts. Ooh. It's just kind of too much. Like, it gets kind of confusing on here, and it gives this album sort of an odd flow. But again, if you like technical music, adventurous music, this is a really interesting listen. Like, I was engaged the entire time just because there's so much. I don't necessarily want to call it coming together because sometimes it's really colliding, but there's so much in it.
Yep.
And I don't know. Like, I mean, overall, I don't hate it. I love the experimentation. It's just kind of how it comes together. So, overall, I'm going to give this 3. 3 stars, I think, is pretty fair. There's a lot of really cool parts in here. It's just kind of putting it together. And, again, these guys listen to a lot of bands that I love. And they show off their flair for it. And, hell, I didn't even bring up, like, the melodic death doom stuff in here. Like, there's, stuff that sounds like Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride. More good bands. Yeah. This just needs a little bit more focus. Like what they did on the song The Devil, I think, is a great formula to build off
whoops ass.
It flows beautifully. It has all the hooks on there, and you still get some cool experimentation. That is definitely something I would like to hear more of. Like, kind of just center it in and focus and just throw out some solid jams that just really work together. Like, this is still really good.
Yep.
Not always my cup of tea, but still, I enjoyed it. I recommend you guys check it out. This is an interesting band. Just give them a listen, and believe me, your head is going to spin. And if you've been listening to all that late 80s, early 90s stuff, you're going to recognize a lot of shit that you probably like from other bands.
Yes. I'm gonna give this a 3 as well. Again, it's a hodgepodge of late 80s and early 90s metal, and how can you go wrong? And it reminds me of so many good bands during that time period. It's just not as cohesive as I think it could be. Like, I'm all about experimentation. All about it. I'm a musician myself, and part of writing songs is experimenting. I just think that they could have been a little bit more put together. So it would have been better to be able to latch onto one thing and have that ride as a dominant point throughout the album. Whereas in this case, you've got a bunch of songs that don't sound like each other. Now, I also haven't studied the tarot enough to be able to tell you, you know, are they spot on with the modes created, you know, within what these cards are. I have no idea.
I don't even know what a stave is, let alone an ace of it.
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't know what a stave is.
That's a good stave, right?
Actually, I don't know what that's weird. I know a lot of words, but I don't know what stave is. So.
Is that like a Steve?
Maybe.
We know some
There's
Steves.
a Steve in the band.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, but it was, you know, the parts I did like, again, like the devil, the two creepy interludes, I thought those were creepy. I liked it. But, yeah, it's a 3, and it's good. It's good, but I implore you to find out for yourself, too. Don't listen to us. We're idiots. I mean, but...
Agreed, I know me.
Yep, I know me, too. I'm really sorry. Me. Please go out and listen to it for yourself. I know they have music out. I know they have it available. We'll, of course, post links to probably the bandcamp and whatnot, just to make sure you check this out for yourself. That's what I got.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you would like to help us out there will be a link down below. And we also still have shirts available. If you would like one, hit us up on thrallsofmetal@gmail.com. Send us a message, put shirts in it, and we will get back to you and hopefully sell you a shirt. So with that, I thank all of you once again, and we will catch you later.